let's make some homemade sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is one of those things that I love mostly on hot dogs or sausages or something like that. And it's easy to get. You can go in the store and buy it. But if you've never made it yourself, it is so simple. Now I'm starting with about a 3-pound head of cabbage here. I'm not going to use all of this because I'm just going to be doing one jar. What's left over here is going to go into some coleslaw. But the first thing I want to do is I want to peel off this outer layer, this outer leaf. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into quarters. You can see here's the center, the core. So I'm just going to go here. Get it roughly in half. Get these 2 halves cut. Then what I want to do is kind of cut out this center, thicker part of the core. Now I'm going to take this quarter and I'm going to cut this down the center. So we have basically an 1/8 here of the cabbage. Now this is where we're going to start getting it cut into that sauerkraut sort of thin slices. We're going to go across right here. Basically like that. Take this and we're going to transfer this to a large bowl. I like to use a glass bowl. And repeat the process. Take that quarter and cut it into an 1/8. Forgot to cut the core out first. That's easy. Just go down here at the bottom where it is. All right, I'm going to get the rest of this cut up and then we will move on to salting this cabbage mixture. So the part that's in here chopped up is about 3/4 of that head of cabbage. To this, I'm going to add a 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. Now, once it's in here, we're going to start mixing this up and massaging it. It's going to take, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 minutes, and you're going to start to see liquid come out of this, and that's what we want. So just start massaging, give it a good time. That's looking good. We're releasing a lot of liquid here. We've been going about 7 minutes. And now what I want to do, totally optional step, I'm going to add some caraway seeds. This is a tablespoon of caraway seeds. And this is also the point where if you wanted to add some red pepper flakes or something to spice it up, you could. I'll work those in. That's looking good. Let's start filling our jar. So I have my sterilized canning jar here. I get asked sometimes when I'm pickling or fermenting things, how do I sterilize? I give it a good wash in hot water, rinse it out really well, then I pop it in the oven at 275 for 15 or 20 minutes. Now for the lids, I just put those in simmering water for about 10 minutes. That sterilizes them and then we're ready to go. We're not going to be using the lid right now though, because this is going to be fermenting. We want some oxygen to get in there. So this is going to have some cheesecloth over it while it begins that fermentation process. But let's get it filled up with our cabbage mixture. Push it down in there every once in a while. Let's see if we get everybody in here, if I need to do a second jar, smaller one. Want to leave enough headspace because there's going to be a weight in there to help hold the cabbage down as it's fermenting. It's really important to make sure that your stuff is clean. You've got clean utensils like this spoon. You've got a clean jar, sterilized. Because what you don't want to get in here is bad bacteria. It's about as much as I'm going to get in there because I want to make sure that weight gets in there. I'm going to pour this liquid from our bowl in here. Push it down in there. More liquid is going to come off this as it begins to ferment over the next several days. Get my sterilized weight down in here. And that will help push the cabbage down to release more liquid. Now, over the next 24 hours, you want to check this every so often. And if it seems like it's not compacted enough, just press down on that weight. If you're not using a weight, you could put a large cabbage leaf over the top to kind of help keep all the smaller pieces beneath that. Now, after 24 hours, if liquid hasn't risen above the cabbage in here, you want to add a little bit more. What you want to do is take, say, a teaspoon of salt, mix it into a cup of water so it's dissolved, and then you just pour enough until it's above the cabbage. But for the first 24 hours, we're just going to let this ferment. So let's get our cheesecloth on here. Put a rubber band around this here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a dark place that's not too hot. You really don't want it to get above 75 degrees. So let's say between 65 and 75 degrees. Just some place like that in your house. You can put a towel over it, a bag over it, anything that's going to keep it in the dark. Let's say over the next 24 hours, every 6 hours, I give it a check, make sure that it's compacted down in there with the weight. Using a weight like I am, that really does help with that. So it does keep it compacted, but you want to check it. And after 24 hours, I'm going to add some liquid to it if it needs it. If it doesn't, I'm just going to let it go. If that liquid is already produced from its own leaves in there, perfect. And then every day we'll check to make sure there's enough liquid above the cabbage. Now, after 3 days, I'm going to start tasting it. And when it reaches the amount of flavor I like in my sauerkraut, I'm going to take the cheesecloth off. I'm going to put an actual canning lid, a sterilized canning lid on it, and it's going to go in the refrigerator because this is a refrigerated sauerkraut. It'll last for, I've had it last for about a month or so after that, but for me, usually it's gone within 2 weeks. So that's why I like to make small batches like this. So this is going to go in a nice dark resting place that's not too hot, and I'll see you back here in a few days when we taste it and see if we need to go further. Well, we are back to check our sauerkraut. It has been 3 days in this jar, and already it has such a great smell coming off of it. So let's open it up, take a taste, see if it needs any more time. And if it doesn't, we're going to put a lid on it and pop it in the refrigerator. And then I'm going to let it go there for a couple days before I have a real taste of it on some hot dogs. Oh, that is looking good. That smell is terrific. Let me get the weight out of here. Now, you're going to see a little bit of some bubbling there, and that is fine. Now, let's say you put it in the refrigerator in a few days, there's still sort of that bubbling, foamy stuff on top. You can just skim that off. Let's dig down in here a little bit, give it a stir, and get a taste. A little preliminary taste here. Let's see. That's how I like my sauerkraut. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually clean up the inside of the rim a little bit, press this down. We're not going to put the weight back in there. Like I said, we're going to get the lid on, and we're going to get this in the refrigerator. So first, let me press some of this down in here, and clean the inside of this rim. Any of these pieces that are stuck up there. A nice little bubbling you see there, that's the fermentation process, those gases releasing. Got my sterilized lid here. I always like to write the date that I first started fermenting this. That way I'll know how long it's been. Like I said, I've had this 2 or 3 weeks in the refrigerator before, but honestly, for me, it's gone within 2 weeks. I love this on a lot of different things. So let's get this in the refrigerator, and in a few days, we'll come back and try it on a hot dog. It is time to get our hot dog made and top it with some sauerkraut. Get a little bit of spicy brown mustard on here first. Now for some of our sauerkraut. So this sauerkraut had its fermentation without the lid, just sitting out on the counter for 3 days, and it's been in the refrigerator for 2 days beyond that, so let's have a taste. That is some really good sauerkraut, and let me tell you why I really mean that, because as I film these videos, I have to sort of schedule them in different times, filming different parts. It is 7:45 in the morning. I'm eating a hot dog with homemade sauerkraut. It's the best breakfast I've ever had. So why make your own sauerkraut instead of just going and buying it at the store? Well, for one reason, it's fun. For another reason, you know exactly what's going into it. No additional additives, anything like that. You can put the flavors in it you like. And there's just something satisfying about getting something that tastes this good and enjoying it.